Senator Ritchie from the state of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable senators. Thank you for inviting me here to testify about a matter that is important to the people that I represent along Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River. As a member of the New York State Senate, it is a rare and historic privilege to be invited to Canada's capital to offer my thoughts on a problem that affects our constituents on both sides of the border. As the senator who represents the longest stretch of the Empire State's 450-mile shared international border, I have always taken a great deal of pride in the unique relationship my constituents and I have with the people of Canada. When I was invited here today, I was reminded about my first trip to Parliament and Ottawa a few years ago on my 6th grade class trip. Where I live, just outside of Ogdensburg, it is minutes from the Canadian border. It is less than 50 miles from my home to Ottawa. When my children were growing up, I used to drive them to hockey practice at rinks in Ontario. My family often visits Ottawa, Brockville, Prescott, and Montreal. 6 years ago, when an American boater in the Gananoque Narrows was stopped by officers of the Canadian Border Services Agency, I and countless others were shocked to learn that his boat was seized. He was told that if he did not immediately pay a $1,000 fine on the spot, he would be handcuffed and forced to lie on his stomach while his boat was towed to Canada, where he could face a penalty of up to $25,000. As someone who used to go with friends for boat rides along the Ontario side of the river to look at your beautiful shoreline, I believe it could have been me or a member of my family that this happened to. Those of us who call the Thousand Islands region home know that the international border is not a straight line, and it usually not even in the middle of the river. It zigzags along the islands and sometimes runs through the seaway shipping channel that the citizens of our two countries helped build just a half-century ago. The area along the border I represent is a very special place where many of my constituents and even I can proudly trace our ancestors back to Canada. For those of us who make our homes in the St. Lawrence Valley, the river is more than a neighborhood that brings us together, rather than a line that divides us. Unfortunately, since this event, I can honestly say that my family and I, along with many others, have not taken another boat ride along the Canadian shore. Since it sent a chill through the border communities I represent, creating a layer of uncertainty at a time when security issues at border crossings are already making more and more people think twice before they travel to Canada. I want to personally and publicly thank my friend and your colleague, Senator Runciman, for his leadership on this very important issue. When this troubling incident happened, I did not know Senator Runciman. I reached out to him as a fellow legislator who represented communities along the St. Lawrence River. I asked him to look into it because I was worried about how it would affect the relationship between our two nations. Senator Runciman took a public stand in favor of international friendship at a time when a lot of people were willing to sacrifice our unique relationship for concerns that had little to do with border security. This international incident threatened to tear apart the people who live along our common border, but it also helped to bring us together. Because of it, Senator Runciman, Member of Parliament Brown, and I created our International Border Caucus with other members of the New York State Senate, so we could talk about common problems and ways we could work together to help maintain our relationships with our constituents that they have forged over the centuries. Today, your committee has a historic opportunity to bring the people we both represent back together and strengthen the ties that have made our relationship so unique in a dangerous world. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senator.